ketubah?
No, it's conversion,
Oh,
for that baby.
Right here?
Yeah.
Hebrew and English, or just Hebrew?
English there, Hebrew here.
English here.
Yeah, we said hi.
On this side or this side?
Right there.
Right there.
Baby's doing great, thank you. Baby is well, she's growing. She'll be here tomorrow. She's coming tomorrow. You know, my father would say, he said that she's growing. My father would advise me. That's what they do. That's what they should be doing, at least. So. Even he's still growing. Absolutely. I'm growing the wrong way now.
That's what my cousin would say.
I'm growing this way.
Cousin would say the same thing. Yes. I will not kick him. Will not. I don't know if this is going to stay on me.
Test 1, 2.
Mine's on here.
Let me make sure we're online.
Test. Test.
There you go.
Oh, I'm on.
1 second. Make sure we're online first. Shabbat Shalom. Oh, thank you to the one person who said Shabbat Shalom back to me. Let's try that one more time. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Good to see you all here. We are going to get started with welcoming each other, saying how good it is for us to be together. One 29.
Yeshmera Shabbat Eishmereni Yeshmera Shabbat Eishmereni Otili Olmeyat Dina Uveni Otili Olmeyat Dina Uveni Yeshmera Shabbat Eishmereni Yeshmera Shabbat Eishmereni. This is on page 129. It describes, in a sense, the Shabbat as a bride, even before we get to Lecha Dodi. We imagine the beautiful bride of Shabbat greeting us in this beautiful piece of Sephardic based on Shir HaShirim, Kol Dodi. Yai, lai, 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 yai, lai, 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 yai, lai, 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 lai. Sing with me, yai, lai, lai, lai,
142, as we hope this will be a Shabbat of peace for all of us and bring peace upon all of us. Shalom Aleichem.
In the same kind of a style as Kol Dodi, we have this beautiful Shalom Aleichem by a Hispanic composer named Shmuel Brazil. Shalom Aleichem, Malachi Hasharet, Malachi Elyon, Melech Malachi Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Bachem Shalom, Malachi Hashalom, Malachi Elyon, Melech Malachi Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Honim Shalom, Malachi Hashalom, Malachi Tzeitzechem l'shalom, Malachi Shalom, Malachi Elyon, Melech Malachi Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzeitzechem l'shalom, Malachi Shalom, Malachi Elyon, Melech Malachi Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Malachi Hasharet, Malachi Elyon, Minalech, Malachi Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
We'll now turn back to page 138. And like the cantor was saying earlier, Shabbat, in a sense, it's like being at a wedding. It's this build-up all week long. And then we get this moment where we get to see Shabbat enter our lives as the sun sets. And it's like watching a bride walk into a wedding venue. And we read that this is a matrimony for God and this bride. God says in the second chapter of Genesis that it's not good for a person to be alone. And yet in the first chapter of Genesis, we read that we're made in God's image and likeness. So perhaps it's not good for God to be alone either. And Shabbat provides this companionship that it's like witnessing a wedding. And so let's come into Shabbat with joy on page 138.
This is beautiful. This piece actually comes from Northern Africa. A wonderful Canadian chazan named Aaron Ben Shushan. This is his original, Lecha Dodeh. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la. Lecha Dodeh, likarat kala. Penei Shabbat, nekabela lecha dodi, likarat kala. Penei Shabbat, nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, hishemi anu el hamiuchad. Adonai Echad, U'Shemo Echad, L'Shem U'L'Tiferet, V'L'Hidila. Sing with me. Lecha Dodi, Likarat Kala, Penei Shabbat, Nekabela. Lecha Dodi, Likarat Kala, Penei Shabbat, Nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nilcha, ki mekor haberacha, merosh b'kedem nesucha, סוף המעשה במחשבה תחילה לך דודי לי קראת לה פני שבת נקבלה לך nekabela. Verse 5. תתעוררי, כי באורך קומי אורי, אורי, שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה, לך דודי, לקראת קלה, פני שבת, נקבלה לך דודי, לקראת קלה, פני שבת, נקבלה.
We rise and greet Shabbat, face the entrance.
Va'id shalom, ateret bala, gam b'simcha u'betzala, toch emuneh המסגולה, בואי חלה, לך דודי, לקראת קלה, פני שבת, נקבלה, לך דודי, לקראת קלה, פני שבת, נקבלה.
Now that we've greeted Shabbat, let's take a moment and greet one another. I see people I don't know here this evening, or at least who I don't recognize the top half of their faces. And so if you see somebody you don't know or you're new here, how about you introduce yourself to someone, and when you hear the music playing, that'll be our cue that we're resuming our service. Oh. Hey, Shabbat Shalom.
Chatzi Kaddish, right?
Candle lighting and Hatzi Kaddish.
Candle lighting first.
Yeah.
Got it.
Go ahead.
Oh, we could turn this on.
Go ahead. Cindy, go.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen. And as we light these candles, we acknowledge the light that Shabbat brings into our lives. And now we turn to the Hatzi Kaddish on page 144 to conclude the beginning part of our service and then go into our worship.
יתקדש ויתקדש שמי רבה
Amen.
ויעמד יברח חירותי וימליך מלכותי וחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכו בית ישראל בגלה ובזמן קריב במהירות
Amen.
יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עולמיה
Yitbarach.
יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתערף ויתעלה שמי לקודשה
Rehu.
לילה מן כברכתה ושירתה תשבחתה ונחמתה תמירן בעלמה ואמרו.
Amen. We rise for our call to worship the Baruch Hu on page 146. Page 149. This is an hour of change, and within it we stand uncertain on the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? This is the hour of change, and within it we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over?
Baruch atah Adonai Ha'ma'arif Aravi.
Amen. We turn to 150 for our blessing that reminds all of us that you are loved and that God sees holiness in all of you.
Ahavat olam beit Yisrael Amcha Torah u'mitzvot u'kimu אותנו לימדת. על כן אדוני אלוהינו, בשוכבנו ובקומנו, נשיח בחוקיך, ונשמח בדברי תורתך, ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד. כי הם חיינו לאורך ימינו, ובהם נגה יומם ולילה. באהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמי. ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל. שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד. ברוך שם כבוד מלכותו לעולם ועד.
154.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם אלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
I have a Jewish question for a lot of you. For those of you who've been to a traditional Jewish wedding, maybe you've seen that when the spouses trade rings, they don't always put it on the ring finger, but instead, they often put it on the pointer finger. And my wife might put it on the middle with me sometimes, just kidding. But often the pointer finger. And so why is that the case? It's connected to your heart. That's a nice reason. I've heard a few reasons. So any other reasons like that? It's connected to your heart. That's nice. Some people have told me that it's so you're pointing, you're like, I choose you. Other people have said that forgetting about that, you know, in the moment they're so excited to get married and they're not thinking about the material possessions, so they put it on the wrong finger because that's the farthest thing from their mind. But one of the reasons, too, is that I've heard that's a traditional reasoning, is that then this person who's getting married has to take the ring off of that finger and put it on the correct finger. And that's an intentional act. And that's showing, especially in a time when sometimes people were forced to marry somebody they didn't want to, or something like this. What this shows is that by a person doing that act, They're saying, I am not having this just put on me. I'm choosing to go forward with this marriage. And it's kind of a beautiful thing if you think about it, of intentionality. And really, like, this intentionality is such a gift because it represents freedom. And while we were slaves in Egypt, that's kind of what defines a slave, is you can't have intentionality. You can't have freedom. But when our people stood at the edge of the sea, they had a choice. Do I go back or do I cross over? And what they chose was to go forward and to choose their own destiny, to choose their own fate, and at the same time, choose to be in covenant and in relationship with God. And that step forward required intentionality. So I want us to think about what intentional things we're going to do in the coming week to perhaps make ourselves more free and to choose our fate and destiny so that our tomorrows will be better than our todays. 158.
Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la. Mi chana chavalim Adonai, mi chana chaneda makonet, yaratilat, asetel. מלכותך ראו בניך, הקיים לפני משה ומרים, מלכותך ראו בניך, הקיים לפני משה ומרים. פדה אדוני את יעקב, וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני, גאל ישראל.
Amen. 160. In English. Sure thing. Grant, O God, that we lie down in peace, and raise us up, our guardian, to life renewed. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Guide us with your good counsel for your name's sake. Be our help. Shield and shelter us beneath the shadow of your wings. Defend us against enemies, illness, war, famine, and sorrow. Distance us from wrongdoing. For you, God, watch over us and deliver us. For you, God, are gracious and merciful. Guard our going and coming to life and to peace evermore. Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over Jerusalem.
Baruch atah Adonai, haborei sukat, sukat shalom aleinu. Haborei sukat, sukat shalom aleinu. Yal kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim.
162. Let's sing Vishamru.
Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. בני ובן בני ישראל אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
We rise on 164.
That my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah. האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, רומם חסדים טובים, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן. ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, בחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע. מוריד הטל, מחכה לחיים בחסד, בחיי הכל ברחמים רבים. סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו בשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומידו נעלה, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל.
170.
אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
Continue silently, and you can use this as an opportunity to pray the words on the page or pray the words that are in your heart. And when you are finished, which should be through page 180, I believe, you may be seated. This time, think of those who could use a prayer of healing in the mind, body, spirit, and those who are in a period of recovery. And with the Misha Berach, what I love about this prayer is it seems to be the one in our service that has the most intentionality behind it. Even when people come, they tell me, I come to see my friends, or I come for the cookies afterwards or whatever, and I don't really come to pray. it seems that when somebody they love or care about is in need of healing, they pray at this moment. And so I ask you to bring into your heart those who could use as well a prayer for healing. And we turn to page 371 for that.
May the source of strength who blessed the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen.
This week, we think of these members of our community and their loved ones could use a prayer for healing. Elchanan Yitzhak ben Shimshon Pinchas, Lisa bat Orly, Esther bat Malka, Gitalea bat Mashahana, Menachem Mendel ben Toba, Michael ben Manya, Rivka bat Mordechai, Shol Mordechai ben Hana, Israel Isser ben Moshe, Yitzhak ben Etalea, Yeshua David ben Shaul Mordechai ben Esther, Mona Asher, Laureen Berry, Marsha Bronsky, Denise Dobling, David Dowsett, Theo Dowsett, Evelyn Edwards, Charles Frost, Will Goldman, Scott Hacking, Sharon Hobbs, Susan Horn, Sandy Kahn, Sharon Katz, Rabbi Dove Lerner, Megan Magleby, Jamie Manson, Tyler Matthews, Janet Morley, Tom Nelson, Shari Pedersen, Cynthia Pepper, Gerald Rosen, Luke Rosen, Philip Rosenberg, Gary Rubenstein, Nina Sable, Penny Spector, Angela Stefani, Linda Stern, Lauren Weiss, Judy Wolf, and Vanessa Zealot. And if you have a name to add, when I look in your direction, you're welcome to share it. And if you're at home and you have a name that you wish to share, you're welcome to do so at this time also.
Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
It's a little better than earlier. Not great. We could still do better, I think, with our Shabbat Shaloms, but that's all right. It's been a long week. The heat, I get it. So let me again ask a question, hypothetical. Let's say I'm driving down the street, and it's around right now-ish time, and I'm driving west, and the sun is right in my eyes, and lo and behold, I hear a crash, bump, and I've hit something, and I pull over, and I see I've hit a pedestrian, and I try and do CPR, I call 911, and nothing works, and unfortunately, I've killed this person. Am I a terrible, bad human being in this scenario? You can answer. Somebody said yes. Oh. Somebody else said no, a bad thing happened. Okay, now let's take a second scenario. I'm driving down the street around this time. I'm going west, and I see a person I really don't like on their bicycle, and I am driving, they're in the bike lane, I swerve and hit them and drive off, and I've killed them. Am I a bad person? That's a psycho. I'm a psycho. Not only a bad person, but a psycho. Well, what's the difference? In both situations, I hit someone with my car and I killed them. Why, in one scenario, am I a bad person? Why am I not? Okay, I'm hearing from all sides of the room. One was intentional, one was not. In the first one, I tried to help too. All right. There you go. That's another factor. Yeah, back up. And no. So even though the end result is the same, essentially, this person has died, in one instance, I'm a bad person. In one instance, I'm a good person, even though essentially the same thing happened with the same outcome. And also in the court of law, would I be judged differently? Yeah. One would be a murder charge, and one would maybe be manslaughter or something like this, depending on certain factors. Or I might not be criminally charged at all, it'd just be a horrible accident. Well, this is one of the things I love about Judaism, is that Judaism takes into consideration intentionality. Judaism takes into consideration, was I trying to be harmful or not? When we look in the Talmud, there are all of these different examples about intentionality or lack thereof. Like, for instance, if I am chopping wood and swing my axe and the top of the axe flies off, hits someone, kills someone, I'm not considered a murderer. Or if I have a wonderful dog, it's never bit anybody before, and then lo and behold, it mauls somebody and kills them, I'm judged differently than if I have a dog that's been a repeat offender. And what our Torah portion this week talks about is what's called the city of refuge, and the various cities of refuge. And what exactly is that? Well, earlier in the Torah, it says that an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, a life for a life. And the simple meaning of this could be that if I poke out your eye, you get to poke out my eye. If I cut off your left hand, you get to cut off my left hand. Now, I love studying this in the Talmud because there's actually a whole bunch of things that says, no, that doesn't literally mean you get to poke out my eye. Since I poked out your eye, it means I need to pay you the value, and that's a whole nother class for another time that I've taught that I really love. But with that simple meaning, after all, in Torah study, we often look at Torah as what's called pardes, an orchard that we're supposed to get deep into. And pardes is an acronym with the pay standing for the simple meaning. And that's how we first examine the Torah. And after that, we're supposed to look at the remit, the hints and clues it's dropping for us, and then the drash, what this means on a greater level, and then the sod, the secret meaning. This is all Kabbalistic stuff here. But for many people, they can't get past the simple meaning of the text. And we see that being a problem. We see that as a problem in many aspects of our society, where people read the text and read about homosexuality or read about how to treat women or read about something else, and they only take the simple meaning of the text without diving deeper into it. And the danger is that in reading the simple meaning of an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, a life for a life, is in that first scenario I gave you, where I accidentally killed somebody. Their family, the victim's family, in reading the simple meaning of the text, might say, "You killed my relative, so now I'm going to kill you." And the Torah says, if this were to happen and it was unintentional, my life is worth sparing. And so I can go to one of these cities of refuge and be protected in it. Ultimately, what the Torah is also saying, in addition to intentionality matter, is that justice matters as well. Later on in the Torah, in Parshat Shoftim, which we'll read in a month or so, it says, "Tzedek, tzedek tirdof," justice, justice you shall pursue. And why is justice said twice? Why isn't it just you should pursue justice? No, instead it says justice, justice you shall pursue. Some people say it's for emphasis, like it's really important. Like, listen. But another thought is that justice is said twice because everyone deserves justice. For instance, in that scenario, the person I hit on their bike deserves justice, but also I deserve justice too. Now, a couple of things that come to my mind historically. I think about the mobster, John Gotti, famous mafioso. And John Gotti's son was the kid described in the first scenario. John Gotti's son had a little motorbike that he would go up and down his street on as a kid. And one day, Frank Gotti was his name, went out from behind a car on his motorbike, and John Gotti's next door neighbor hit him and killed him with his car. And by this man's children's account, he was a wonderful person and wonderful father. But obviously, you never want to hit and kill somebody with your car accidentally, especially if that person ends up being the child of the head of the mafia. And this neighbor eventually disappeared. And nobody knows what happened to him, but some people in the mafia have said that he suffered a horrible, torturous death because Gotti sought to bring justice into his own hands. And now the question we have to ask was this man given justice? No. He wasn't given a chance to defend himself, and his intentionality wasn't taken into account. Meanwhile, I grew up in Seattle, Washington, and there was a local celebrity there, a man who experienced homelessness, and I don't know his real name, but everybody called him Tuba Man. And that's because after every single Seattle sports event, he would be outside playing the few notes he knew on his tuba, and people to try and get some money. And everyone in the city knew this guy, knew Tuba Man. Well, one night, a group of teenagers robbed Tuba Man, and they beat him to death. And the whole city went into mourning. And these teenagers were like 17 and a half or something like this. And when they were arrested and tried, they were tried as minors and sentenced to be in juvenile detention until their 18th birthday, which meant that the perpetrator of this crime got 6 weeks in prison for this heinous crime where they intentionally beat a vulnerable defenseless man to his death. And upon being released from prison, one of them murdered again. This was not justice either. The message that was sent was that Tuba man's life was not valuable. And the reason why was because what happened to him was intentional. So the message in our Torah portion this week, like I said, it's one that reverberates in Judaism time and time again. Is justice matters, but also we must always look at the intentions of the person. I know all of us, certainly I'll speak for myself, I know I regularly do or say something that hurts somebody else. That's why, even though I'm a rabbi, I fast every single Yom Kippur, and I'm sure I will as long as I'm able to. Because I hurt people on a regular basis. And the question I have to ask myself constantly, and that I do ask myself, that maybe we all do, is, am I a good person if I hurt somebody else's feelings? If I made somebody feel unappreciated in a moment? And the answer that determines, well, the factor that determines whether the answer to that is yes or no comes down to, did I mean to do that? And will I do what I can to prevent that from happening again? And so for all of us going into this week, I hope we can be reflective on that end. But also, when inevitably we are hurt next, it's incumbent upon us, when somebody causes us pain, to ask, did that person mean to do that? Was that intentional? And if it wasn't, how can I spare that person and keep them close to me as well? Shabbat Shalom.
I have a song for that. Whether there was intent or not, we always pray that God will give us refuge, will give us shelter. In the ending of each prayer, we call it the Chatima. You'll hear a lot of those in our service. This is the Chatima to a prayer we heard a little earlier called Hashkivenu, the prayer that talks about a shelter, God spreading a shelter of peace over us. Regardless of our intent, may we find that shelter somewhere to give us hope, to give us refuge. Baruch atah, atah Adonai, haporeh sukkot shalom. Shalom aleinu, ya kol amo Yisrael. Baruch atah, atah Adonai, haporeh sukkot shalom. Shalom aleinu, ya kol amo Yisrael. Le'ad Yerushalayim, le'al kol amo. Le'ad Yerushalayim, shalom. Baruch atah, atah Adonai, haporeh sukkot shalom. Shalom aleinu, ya kol amo Yisrael. Ya kol amo Yisrael. Ya kol amo Yisrael.
before we conclude our service, give you a few announcements. Want to, hope I saw her, but she disappeared. Want to thank Lisa Kaufman, if she's still here, for our office manager, for all of her very hard work. And I know she worked extremely hard today. Grateful for her. And there might be an oneg right afterwards on the patio, I'm not sure. But we'll see if there is. If there is, we'll enjoy it. If there's not, oh well. I want to thank Cantor Brown Levy also for leading us tonight. And Cantor Brown Levy, of course, is our brand new cantor. And tomorrow we're going to be having a special Kiddush after Shabbat services, in which we'll also celebrate Rosh Chodesh, the beginning of the month of Av, tomorrow. And so please join us for that. We're having a special Kiddush following on the patio to welcome the cantor and her family, husband Eitan and son Matan. Thrilled to have you all here. And so please, probably most of you don't know our new cantor, so introduce yourself to her afterwards. And I don't know all of you, so please come say hi to me too afterwards so that we can meet. I won't be here the next few weeks as I take some paternity time to bond with my daughter and help my wife out, but I'll be here more regularly in August and, of course, September and beyond. And so if you're new here, please come talk to me so we can find time next month or something to grab coffee and get to know each other better. And thrilled to have you here in person, and anybody watching at home, hey, get vaccinated and come on down to the synagogue. We'd love to see you, including for in-person minyan on Sunday, Monday, and Thursday as well in the Pepper Chapel. So a way that you can honor a loved one and also help our synagogue is by purchasing some of the memorial plaques you see on the walls here, purchasing one of those for a loved one. It's a great way to help the synagogue, and I have my grandparents' plaques over there, and it's very meaningful for me to see their names lit up on their yort sites. And so if you order those by July 14th, we'll be able to have them installed by the high holidays. If you like to sing, by the way, you'll really get along well with our cantor, who also likes to sing. I hope you like to sing. I like to talk, so I made a living off of it. In the shower, I sing in the shower. If you're interested in being in our choir, we do require that you be a member of the synagogue for that service, but come talk to the cantor or to David Asman so that we can see about putting you in our choir. And a great way to connect and grow in your Jewish experience as well. And in order to get your high holiday tickets and also to ensure our fiscal stability, if you could go ahead and renew your membership if you haven't already. We do require 25% of your payment of your dues and such to receive your high holiday tickets and to be at the annual meeting. So we'd be grateful if you went ahead and did that, especially with how early the high holidays are coming this year. We're going to be sending those tickets out by the first week of August. And a couple very last announcements. Next weekend we have another Jewish holiday. It's Tisha B'Av, which is a really meaningful one if you've never observed that. I encourage you to come and do so. That will begin Saturday evening next week and go into Sunday as well. And the cantor and some of our emeriti clergy and volunteers have put together some nice services and a meaningful reflective program as well. So check that out, and it's a very thought-provoking holiday, I find. And finally, last but not least, as I've been announcing every week, we would love to have you join me and my wife and my daughter in Israel in December. December's a great time to go to Israel because it's not 1,000 degrees. And this is an intergenerational family trip that's going to run December 21st through January 2nd, including the travel dates to get there and back. And it's going to be a very, very special, fun, meaningful trip to Israel. So come talk to me if you are interested in joining me this year in Israel. And those are our announcements. For any recurring programming or anything else, you can check your emails. There's Lisa over there. Hi, Lisa. Thanks for all you do. And if you have any questions, you can come talk to any of us. We are going to conclude. Is there an oneg on the thing? Oh, perfect. Thank you, Lisa, for all your hard work. We appreciate you so much. We are going to turn to page 586 for Aleinu, and I invite you to rise.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, ויגור עלינו ככל המונות, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוצר ארץ, משב יקרה בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגופן מרומי, הוא אלוהינו אינות, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, כך כתוב בתורתו, ידעת היום, ישיבות אל לבביך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים, בשמיים ממעל, בארץ מתחת, אין עוד, אין עוד. ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו
At this time, we think of our loved ones whom death has recently taken, and those who have died at this season in years past, and those whom we have drawn into our hearts with our own. And this week, in the period of Shloshim, 30-day period of mourning, we remember our congregant Lillian Land, and also we remember Cantor David Wisnia, friend of the Green family. And this week, we observe the following Yortzeit's anniversary passing of these loved ones. And if you hear a name, I invite you to rise upon hearing that name. Paul Block, Philip A. Bloom, Fanny Bloom, Kurt Brooks, Evelyn Rose Ciccarello, William Douglas Collar, Jenny Lee Allen Creer, Beverly Elinas, Sarah Eisen, Max Flateau, William Gallinson, Nadine Rosenblum Ginler, Jacques Grossi, Abe Gus, Clara Gottfried Jaffe, H. Donald Hahn, Mandel Kogan, Max Levine, John David Marks Sr., Morris Mednick, Jean Mock, William Nadich, Joanne M. Nelson, Morris Pepper, Barbara Jean Marcus Prazik, Kay Robinson, Nancy Rosenblatt, David Rosenthal, Jennifer Rebecca Sanders, Sylvia Shapiro, Sam Shapiro, William J. Schroeder, Pearl Smith, Fred Smith, Ignatz Tassam, Buck Thompson, Shirley M. Wolf, Nehama Zamir, and Renee Zweighaft. And if you have a name to add when I look in your direction, you're welcome to share with our community. And if you're at home and have a name to share as well, you're welcome to do so. Zichronam Livracha, may their memories be for a blessing. If you are in mourning or is your tradition to do so, you are invited to rise. We are on page 598. Yitkada, Yikadash, Shemei Rabbah, Be'alma divrach yirte, V'yemech malchute, B'chayechon uvyomechon, Uchaye dehol be'Yisrael, Ba'agala ubizman karif v'imru, Amen. Ye Shemei Rabbah Mevarach Le'olam Omei Omaya Yitbarach V'yishabach V'yipa'ar V'yitromam V'yitnaseh V'yithadar V'yitaleh V'yitalal Shemei Dekudesha B'rechu Le'ela Mikol Birchata V'shirata Tushbechata V'nehemata Da'amiram Be'alma V'imru. Amen. Yehi Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya V'chaim Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael V'imru. Amen. Oseh Shalom B'imromav Uyaseh Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael V'imru. Amen. May source of peace and peace to all who are mourning comfort the bereaved among us. And again we say, Amen. How about, what should we do? Sing a new song?
Sing a new song.
Let's sing a new song that we haven't sang to conclude a service before. What should our new song we shall sing be called?
Well, it's called Shir Chadash,
Which means
new song.
a new song. I like it.
This is written by Julie Silver, a West Coast composer.